The harder the conflict, the greater the triumph.
A theistic serpent may be overcome by a swarm of ants.
Lead me, follow me, or get out of my way. Age wrinkles the body, quitting wrinkles the soul.
Battle buddies.
Battle buddies.
Well,
Dude, the video that you sent me was worse than any horror movie I ever watched.
the 60 Minutes one?
God,
Did you watch
damn
that,
it,
Clayton?
Yes.
I did.
Okay.
Fucking scary.
Before we dive into
Yeah, tell me when we're actually
anything-
starting.
Oh, we're recording.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
recording.
okay.
Recording.
Okay,
So,
right.
so listeners, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very, very special episode of Battle Buddies.
Battle buddies.
This is the inaugural. Did I say that right? Inaugural.
Oh, girl.
This is the inaugural episode of having a veteran
Yeah.
guest on our show to share their veteran experience, both the good and the bad.
I thought you were gonna say the shit talk.
And well, that's gonna happen. And this guest is near and dear to my heart because we grew up with the same parents. We are brothers, and we also served at the same time.
We're literally battle buddies.
Yeah,
Battle
battle
brothers. We're
Battle brothers.
That's a different show entirely. So welcome. We're super glad that if you're listening, thank you for listening. And we're gonna get this kicked off. I mean, Clayton is my brother, and he basically was in the United States Navy as a Clayton, why don't you introduce
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. So, I was in the Navy as a nuclear electronics technician. And just so we get it straight off the top, I did not necessarily enjoy the Navy, and the Navy did not necessarily enjoy me. But I still did it, and it still happened. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
I was listening to Dan Carlin the other day. Clayton, are you familiar with Dan Carlin?
Not particularly, no.
So he has a podcast called Hardcore History, and it's really, really, really good. And he was talking about a quote that Eugene Sledge had from World War II. Eugene Sledge was in the Pacific, if you remember that show. And he
Okay.
was a Marine, and he was saying, war is fought from the front. Like, experiences are at the front. And for those who are not at the front, don't really know how to speak about war. And what happens with these veterans is when they're at the front, whether it be in a nuclear reactor room or in the desert somewhere, it's shitty. It's really fucking horrible. It is a painful, painful experience. But after the traumatic PTSD, as we like to call it, after all of that, you then have what is called post-traumatic growth. And we now, I'm going to use you and I as an example, can bond over this traumatic experience that we had. And we have grown from it. We can now use that perspective to view life as a wonderful thing because we did our time, so to speak. So
Yep.
that's really where kind of like patriotism and being proud of being a veteran comes from, is being happy that you're no longer doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, I can be in a bar and talk to anybody from, a 20-year-old fresh out of boot camp to a 70-year-old who's, a longtime veteran, and we're both going to strike up a conversation within minutes because we both have been in the military, for that simple fact. And we could see eye to eye on maybe nothing, but we'll still have a conversation.
But you still have that experience.
So,
that's
yeah, and like you said, it's that perspective from being, we'll say, on the front. I mean, I certainly don't feel like I was ever on the front, but I was in a Navy sense for sure, as front as I could get. So yeah, it was rough, and so I'm happy to lead my perspective to somebody else.
Kevin, would you like to start us off with a silly icebreaker question?
I only have serious bangers.
Give us a serious banger.
Serious bangers.
Uh,
Fun ones? Like
we have fun ones. Okay. Well, let's do a fun one first. So Navy, I did a lot of research for this interview. Thank you for taking the time and doing your own research.
Yeah, man.
Mine was more important, but I'm just kidding. Is shirtless volleyball really a thing for the Navy?
Oh my God. I never saw it. Never saw it,
No.
but I also never flew any fighter jets. So I'm assuming, that's that type of crowd.
Pogue. All right.
Oh, wait, I have a real one. Did you have a similar experience to this? So my brother, when I went to his officer cadet school when he was graduating, and he's like, "Yeah, it's just a weird experience though, Kevin, because all the submariners were all like we're doing this, like we committed to it, we graduated, and then we see all of our friends that are now going to be fighter pilots, and they're having a ball, and we all have this moment where we're like, did we choose the wrong part of the Navy to go into? Did
They
you have like
did.
a
Yeah, they
similar thing?
definitely did. Yeah, for sure. I mean, who's not jealous of a Navy fighter pilot?
They get
Like,
them, yeah, they're fighter pilots.
Yeah. You're
it's
every
cool.
kid's dream.
You're automatically cool.
You're high-fiving.
Flying a
Like they
jet.
were like high like and I when they were getting their awards stuff like backstage, like, yeah, we get to fly jets.
Let me. I'll give you a little. Here's some small perspective. In the middle of deployment, once I remember uh, one of the pilots who we rarely came in contact with, and I mean rarely. Like this was the one time I think I even saw one. We had a pizza and beer night, which really means pizza and O'Doul's. And so, I mean, don't get me wrong, I stuffed a few in my pockets and went on watch, right? But when I got off watch and went back to the lounge, one of the pilots walked through our lounge with a full like 12 pack of O'Doul's, and we all snickered and cracked up as he walked by, like, "Where are you going with the O'Doul's, bro? Have fun."
I on deployment. So I have a different experience than my brother Clayton. I was a Marine in Afghanistan, and I remember I walked to Camp Bastion, which was the English camp, to get a pack of, near beer, non-alcoholic beer. I think it was the St. Pauli's. And when I brought it back, me and my buddies tried to chug as many as we possibly could. I think we got to 6. Like we did it
Ooh.
one right after the other. And we're like, okay, maybe, yeah, I feel like maybe's gotta go. No, we
No,
didn't feel shit.
I literally went down on watch into the reactor plant with O'Doul's in my pockets and logged in and drank a beer. It felt good because it felt wrong. So
Yeah.
Totally.
it tasted like, okay, yeah, all right. So, it was like a placebo effect kind of thing. I kind of forced
Yeah.
myself.
A beer does represent popping a top, kicking back,
Yep.
like being, in a relaxing mode. So I imagine on deployment drinking a beer on watch, being like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
funsies. I'm
Yeah.
not golfing, but whatever. I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're on or when you're on deployment, that's how it goes.
So, maybe tell us why you joined the nuclear navy. Why specifically that
Yeah.
subsect of the navy?
Yeah. So long story short, the college was fine. I was going to Solano Community College out of high school. I think I did 2 semesters, maybe 2.5. Um, but anyway, yeah, my buddy Chuck obviously had enlisted, and so obviously I was curious, and he was saying basically like, well, this is pretty much the most academically prestigious thing you could do in the military without a
Mm.
degree. And it helped that the first couple years were on land, not in the ocean. So I'm like, okay, well, this college thing isn't working out. This living at home thing with dad's really not working out. And so it was a great excuse to kind of be forced to do something.
Yeah.
And uh, I didn't know what I was getting into, but I knew I didn't know what I was getting into.
Yeah.
But oof. Yeah, I guess we'll get into that later. But yeah, I really, really had no clue. You know how it goes. The recruiters don't give you the full
You're gonna
story.
get so much pussy.
You're
That's
gonna
all it
you're gonna be
is.
able to you can get a college degree. You can use this nuke stuff. Basically you just get a college degree. They don't know how it
Give
works
it
because
to
they're
you.
not a nuke.
Give it, give it to you.
Yeah, they just like hand it to you. I think they didn't say that, but yeah. I mean, I was told I was going to be able to go home after boot camp between boot camp and A school. That didn't happen.
Oh God.
So I mean, I remember where the room I was sitting in when that happened. They were talking to all us nukes at boot camp, and raised my hand. That's the only thing I cared about. It's like, are we going home after this between this and A school? And they're like, no, you just fly straight to South Carolina. I was like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, don't
Oh, word.
Oh
cry.
man.
You know what I mean? Like,
So it's important,
uh,
listeners, to know that Clayton here was dating the person he is currently
yeah,
married to.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
yeah, yeah. I was pretty much banking on being able to come home, because it just kind of seemed like, I don't know, that's what happens after boot camps. You go home, then you go to war or whatever. I don't know. Um, so yeah, that's why I joined. Pretty much. I mean, it wasn't like, now, of course, the Navy stuff they get you with the you're gonna go all over the planet, and it's like, yeah, sure, that sounds cool, and of course that it's a part of it, I guess. I know that I'm not going to go sit in Georgia somewhere at a Air Force base and or Germany or whatever.
Yeah.
I knew that it was going to come with inherent um, interesting things. Stories were going to come out of this. I was going to go overseas, and it was going to be interesting, and it definitely was.
the hero's journey. You have to
Hero's journey.
leave home.
Yep.
Yeah,
You gotta go find out who you are, bro. You gotta go on a walkabout.
That's
yep.
pretty
That's
similar to kind of how you said your enlistment story about like you felt like you just needed to force yourself to see something through.
Yeah, definitely. And it's all, I mean, it also, my dad did not make it. It was a pretty easy option when our dad was not good financially, so we knew that we could not afford college.
Right.
And so the
yeah,
military definitely helped with that, being like, hey, so, in ancient times when you came back from war, they'd be like, here's land to live
Right.
on. Nowadays, that land is college
Yeah.
and and no down payment on a house.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
what you got, Kevin? You gotta go
Yeah.
because we
Okay.
can.
So this is my family's gonna be very happy I asked this because growing up we always watched a lot of Crimson Tide. I don't know if you guys watch Crimson
Oh
Tide.
yeah,
I've seen it.
Okay. I'll explain the whole thing. But so we always have the debate that like my family's one like academic like real conversation. We'd always get heated about this debate like who was right, Denzel Washington or what's his face,
Gene
Gene
Hackman.
Hackman.
Mhm.
And my
I
wife,
know what the answer to that is.
yeah, so my wife finally joined in. I made her watch it. So now we watch it every couple like like once a year or whatever, and then have like a big debate about who was right and who was wrong. And so for listeners that haven't watched it recently, like what's wrong with you? First of all, you need to go watch it. It's awesome. Um, But the basic idea is that Gene Hackman gets part of an order that says that he needs to fire the the nukes and just blow up Russia or some Russia adjacent country, I think. And Denzel Washington's like, that's not a confirmed order, and we should go back up and get our radio back working and then get the official order and then do it. And so like a big debate because Gene Hackman's like, if we wait too long, then we won't have a country when we come up. And so that'll be an issue for us to have to solve later as well.
Mm.
So I don't know where do you fall on that? Like, are you the Gene Hackman? Like you get that order, you're like, well, this is enough of an order to do this, or Denzel Washington,
Right.
let's wait.
No, I mean, and I think this will come into perhaps later when we talk about the China stuff, but
Yeah.
you have to be measured in these scenarios as a commander of a nuclear vessel. Gene Hackman was not
No.
measured in that movie. He brought his
unhinged.
damn dog on
I
board.
know.
Dude, I remember watching that one time. I was like, every single enlisted person is pissed off at this motherfucker. Having to bring it. That dog shit's everywhere. That dog piss is everywhere. Who cleans that up? Not him. You know what I mean? Anyway, that would just that's the Hollywood side of it. Obviously, I don't think they would have allowed that. But yeah,
That
Gene
being
Hackman's
said,
the bad guy.
when I read the Tin Can Sailors for Battle of Leyte Gulf, there was a dog on that ship, the lucky dog.
Yeah, I mean, but that's like the 40s. Like
Yeah,
that. I mean, they
World
might have.
War II, different
It
time.
gets it gets bad enough they eat that thing. You know what I mean? Like that's a different time.
That's a good point.
It's true. True.
So you're saying Denzel then?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You're going
Absolutely.
training day all day.
Ooh, and
Absolutely.
do you
Does
guys
your
know?
family agree with that?
Yeah, Denzel. I mean, I hope so.
It's pretty obvious.
But I mean, Hannah. Hannah's pretty cutthroat, so she's like, he did get the order though. I think
Yeah.
her thing is like, which I think is the crux of the movie, which is why are these two officers behaving like children the whole time? Like,
Because Gene Hackman is
yeah,
why.
it is because you have because they should have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And they would in real life. They would. He would consult with his XO. And if there was any confusion, absolutely they would go confirm
Yeah.
before firing.
Well, now
Absolutely.
that's not a problem anymore. Do you guys know why it's not a problem? Spencer, do you know? You're not been on a submarine.
Tell me, dude.
So it's because in the president's limo, he has a special phone, and that phone is what he calls, and that's the briefcase they carry around. That phone has a direct line to the submarines somehow, like it relays to it, and then that gives the order now. So it's
Dude.
not his order anymore. You can't do it anymore through that. That movie talks about it at the end, and so I looked it up. It's a real thing.
Interesting.
I
Yo,
think.
You telling me there is this briefcase currently,
Yeah.
or there was?
So in like because when Obama did some interview after he was president, he was talking about his car had a phone to
Wow.
submarines because that's how he would give the order to fire the nukes.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to. It would have to be. You don't want layers of communication there. So I mean, I guess I get it, but like, wow, it's crazy
Oh,
to even think about.
holy
it is
shit.
crazy to think about. As a matter of fact, submarines are crazy to think
Submarines
about.
are crazy.
Submarines are
They
scary.
are.
They're
They
scary.
are.
After watching that 60 Minutes thing, and they were like, how many submarines do we have? He's like, I am literally not allowed to say that shit.
I'm not talking to you about
We
it.
do. Nobody knows how many submarines we got. Sorry. And then we're
I
talking.
mean, we have a pretty good idea.
Tell me.
I mean, it's not like it's super secret because they have
Well, the 60
bases
minutes, they
where,
said,
but I think there's like almost 70. I think it's between 60 and
Oh,
70, and
dang.
yeah,
Okay.
and like 50 or so of them are what we call fast attack subs, and then the rest are um, ballistic subs. So those are the ones carrying the nukes.
are those are called boomers?
Yep, yep, yep. So those ones are. I think those, yeah. So those are the ones where they go out for big deployments with
Yeah.
the carrier groups, like we do. So they go out for, we did for like 6 months deployments. The fast attacks, they do a port and starboard, um, what do you call it, crew, and so literally one crew is in port while the other one takes the sub out for 3 months, does their wherever they go and patrols their stuff and does their thing, and then comes back. Maybe they do a changeover or something, and then the other crew hops on and they take the sub out for 3 months, and so on and so forth.
I have a question about a submarine that I think we asked when we did Leyte Gulf, and we never found out the answer. But how long can a submarine be submerged
Mm.
before it has to come back up?
I mean, you're limited by. I don't know if they make an air, but they're making. I mean, they're making water. Um, so I mean, at that point, you're limited by air. They have to be, if not food, because they're making their own water. So,
Crazy.
yeah, I mean, you can stay underwater for quite a long time, I'm sure.
Days?
Absolutely days.
Weeks?
Yeah, I would imagine weeks. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then I remember, and you tell me if this is correct or not, but because of the nuclear energy in aircraft carriers, they can sail around for something like 20
Yeah.
years?
Yeah. Yeah. As
Jeez.
far as power is concerned,
That's not the issue.
you're talking decades. Yeah. The
Wild.
people, yeah, people would die before the submarine would stop going. You know
So
what I mean?
it could be like a ghost submarine, just
Yeah.
like,
It
oh
would
man.
run into an underground mountain or something at some point, but
Yeah.
Um,
Just to give people an idea, so I have been on an aircraft carrier. Obviously, Clayton has been as well. If you have not in your life, it's very impressive. And one thing that Chuck, Clayton's best friend that he joined with, put into perspective is that an aircraft carrier is as long as the Empire State Building is tall.
Mm.
So it's fucking huge. It's massive. It's a crazy thing to be a part of. That being
it
said,
is.
watching that 60 Minutes thing, I was like, I'm already, oh my God. I don't want to, being on that would just be exhausting. You're like, oh, it's like being in a floating warehouse.
Yeah, when they showed
Colors.
those missiles that China has lined up on their coast, I was like,
Those were wild.
Yeah.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't really have much similar feelings to that, and I mean, at some point, I'm sure we'll go into my deployment, but I only had a situation like that once where I was like, okay, this is kind of like scary, you know. But for the most part, you're like in the middle of the ocean. And when you're in the middle of the ocean, you know that you're surrounded by a carrier group, and somewhere underneath you is a sub down there, and you're good. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Solid. Like,
You guys are scary.
Yeah, that's the
That's
sound of
scary.
freedom, like moving.
Yeah, that is scary. We won't get to deployment quite yet, so let's back up and why don't you tell us what training to be a nuclear engineer is that the proper way to say that?
um, we call ourselves nukes, I guess, or they call us nukes. But yeah,
Oh,
nuclear.
tell us what it's like to train to be for all those young guns
Yeah,
out there who are thinking about being a nuke in the Navy. Here is what training is like.
yeah. So there's three different enlisted, and this is for I was enlisted, so we're going to go down that route. I'll mention the officers as we go, but for the enlisted folks, those of us without college degrees, and there was some of us with college degrees, there's three different types of nukes. There's ETs, which is what I was, an electronics technician, EMs, electricians mates, and then MMs, machinist mates. So the machinist mates would be down in the plant, like more working with the pumps and the valves and stuff like that. The EMs would be working in load center, basically controlling the power loads throughout the ship. And as you know, different plants come online and whatnot, you know, utilizing that power and transferring it from one place to the other, so on and so forth. And then the ETs, like me, we were kind of controlling the instrumentation, basically. So all the controls, if you will. So the drives that move the rods up and down in the core. The reactor operator itself is an ET. Um, one fun one fun one I had was called Instrument Watch, where we literally walk around the upper level and just every hour take logs on all the drives. Is everything good? You know, and yeah, so those are the three things you're going for. Typically, the folks are going for the ETs because those are the highest bonus uh, uh, rate.
What
Um,
is a bonus?
the bonuses come for either your sign-on bonus or a reenlistment bonus. And at the time I was in, which is the mid 2000s to late 2000s, um, the enlistment bonus for a nuke ET was $90,000.
That's a lot of
So
money. It's a lot.
that's what I went with,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Um, now, when you're boot camp, you technically choose like two, and they are like, all right, which two do you want? We'll try to get you what you want. And I chose EM, and I ended up with ET. So yeah, so they shoot. You find out what you are in boot camp, pretty much, and boot camp is everybody's the same in boot camp, which is 9 weeks. And once you get out of boot camp, like I said, they don't let you go home. You go straight out to Charleston, South Carolina, um, where you begin what is 18 months to 2 years of the nuclear power training pipeline. The first two schools is A school and power school. So this is on land at the NNPTC, Navy Nuclear Power Training Command over there in North Charleston. So A school is where you go to the rate specific stuff, ET, EM, MM, right? So the ETs and EMs, we would make fun of the MMs because their school was half as long as ours.
Idiots.
And, we called them monkeys because they're just working with wrenches. And, what is it? Righty tighty, lefty loosey, whatever. We'd make fun of them. But they got out of there 3 months earlier than we did. So there's that. But yeah, A school, you're doing straight up like pre-calculus math, physics, electrical theory for us ETs. At the end, we were even practicing soldering, which I never did once on the ship. Um, um, but yeah, I think they started us off in like reactor fundamentals, reactor core principles, shit like that. And we're talking wake up in the morning. I mean, when you get there fresh out of boot camp, you're still in uniform and all that. You're still saying, yes, petty officer, no petty officer, all that stuff. Yes, chief, no chief. And for the first few weeks or months, you're still in the uniforms they give you out of boot camp. Then you earn the right to wear clothes.
Of course. Yeah.
Oh, God.
And let me back up a little bit. The NNPTC compound is kind of like a college campus where you have a series of dormitories. Obviously, male and female are segregated, and in the dormitories you have your laundry, and each room is basically think kind of like a hotel room, but in between two hotel rooms, the bathroom is shared. And so you're in A school, you're two people to each room, and then four people share a shower and stuff. And then in power school, you graduate to one person per room and two people share the shower.
Okay.
So yeah, and there's a galley, there's a medical area, there's everything you need. It's a military base. So anyway, A school 6 months, and then you're basically waiting for the next class up. And when you get there, you might be waiting for a class up, which is I think every 2 weeks or so. That's why the 18 months kind of turns into 2 years.
Okay.
So then after A school, you go to power school. Power school is where you start getting into the nitty gritty of nuclear power. I mean, at this point, you're talking fluid dynamics, thermodynamics, chemistry, heat transfer, industrial safety, metallurgy, uh, nuclear physics, straight up, nuclear ethics. Even
Wow.
we talk about obviously all the nuclear
Chernobyl.
incidents we go through, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, so that's still all in classroom, in this building, in this training building, from I think it was 7 in the morning, 6 or 7 in the morning till sometimes 9 at night. And the way that works is you have your typical day from 7 to 3 or 4, whatever it is, and then based off of your grades at the time, which you would kind of equate to your GPA, they have what is called TAC hours. So let's say you're doing okay, but you could be doing better. They'll put you on what's called 2 TAC 10s, which means you have to do a minimum of 10 study hours throughout the week with 2 hours a day, right? And then there's 3 TAC 15s, 4 20s, 5 25s, and it's just like, and sometimes they just use it as straight up punishment.
Oh, God.
Here's a funny way to put it. When I got a motorcycle at one point out there, and the week I got my motorcycle, I got a bad grade on a test, so my GPA or whatever went down, and I was on like 20 TAC 4s. Got a good grade on the test that week, and was on like 2 TAC 10s. Went out, rode my motorcycle, didn't study. That week, got a bad grade, got put on 3 TAC 15s, and it just went back and forth
Oh,
and back
no.
and forth. I mean, and it's not
Like
just
college.
like
Just like
it's
college.
yeah. I was gonna say, and it's not just like college. These people that are in charge of you are higher ranking than you, so it's not just going to an instructor. You're going to a superior. So you
Right.
have to approach them correctly, so anyway, you get used to it. By the time you're in power school, if you're not used to it, you're gone by then. But down the road from power school is what we call prototype, NPTU, um, which is two decommissioned submarines in the Charleston River. Um, and there's a training building right off the pier where we do all the office type stuff. There you go from learning about the stuff academically to seeing it physically and doing it with your hands, right? So you go down into the top hatch of this submarine that they have cut in half, took out the torpedo tubes and the berthings, and
Cool.
changed it into offices and training areas. But the back end is still a full on reactor. There's not a propeller on the back, it's just like a disc or something. And they limit us to 40% or something like that power. So you can't get too crazy with it. But you're doing it, right? And so you spend your days doing checkouts. Checkout after checkout, which is basically like you have a training book and you'll have a topic on, I don't know, radiation theory. So you'll go to that instructor, and all the instructors at Prototype are all C returnees. So you'll go to that instructor and they'll say, okay, tell me about it.
Yep.
And you basically have to do a verbal academic presentation to get this checkout. And they scan it with the computer and it goes on into your record and they're like, all right, checkout done. And you have different books for different classes or whatever. Um, anyway, uh, not only are you operating a nuclear reactor, but they're getting you used to um, uh, a rotating shift schedule. So while you're at prototype, week to week, you go from working days to working mids to working nights to working mornings, and then you have a easy week where you're just like normally during the day, and you get 4 days off, and then you after that 4 days off, you go flip it back to the opposite schedule, and it never gives up, and you do that for 6 months until you're done. So you're basically just tired for
Deployment.
6 months. Yeah, I mean that's kind of what it does. It just kind of kicks your ass like deployment does. Now, granted, you get to drive back into Charleston and get funky at night, but uh, yeah, uh, so in a nutshell, that's basically the three tiers of power or A school, power school, prototype, and the training pipeline as a nuke um, in the Navy and what you should expect. Now, all that aside, really what it comes down to is can you memorize things? If you're
Right.
good
Right.
at memorizing things, you're going to be okay at nuclear power school, you know? Now, obviously, you have to understand them conceptually to be able to speak on them. That's why there's no multiple choice. There's a test every Friday.
Yep.
It's all essay style, or verbal, like I said in prototype. So, yeah, it's the absolute most academically difficult thing I have ever done and will do in my life. I've never felt more stupid. I've never um, been more down on myself. It was just because it's not just that you're doing it, but you're doing it with this military mindset, which isn't necessarily a healthy learning environment.
Now,
Right.
I mean, I
wait,
get
I
it
have a
for like,
question.
yeah,
Uh, recall sometimes we embellish things as we think about it over time, but correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't this school have the highest attrition rate in the military? Like close to like the Navy SEALs or something like that?
I know, I know all the instructors would brag about how it was just a stupid higher attrition rate.
Yeah.
We definitely had attrition.
Yeah.
And it was kind of sad because it was such a long journey and process
Absolutely.
that you'd be going through these. I mean, we weren't even in the fleet yet, but you'd be going through these hard times with these guys, and some of them are even married and everything, and um, they just can't do it. Like some people just crack, some people slowly slip away, but it just is so shitty that it drains you for 2 years straight, and I mean, you're under a microscope the whole time. um so it's like, I get it. Every time somebody would leave, you'd get a little jealous, but you'd be like, well, shit, I'm I'm still going on. That's kind of what gets you through, is you're like, you
Yeah.
put up with it, so you want to get through it because you're like, I put it up with it this long. I need to finish it, or else it's all for nothing.
When
You
you
know?
first went from the theory to the prototype, uh, was that like as terrifying? In my head, that would be like the most terrifying experience. Like, oh, it's game on. I'm going to be in charge of the reactor today. Or was it like, I'm so fucking done with all of this shit. Like, I'm ready. Like, give me the rod. I'm ready to stick the rod near
Yeah.
the reactor.
Right. So another thing that I forgot to mention is between Power School and Prototype, like I said, is down the road, right? So you move off of that campus and they put you in housing, or they give you a stipend, they give you BAS, uh
Dang.
BAH,
Even
whatever it is.
when you're single?
Yeah. And so
That's
they give all
wild.
these
Is it?
young single people money to move out into town.
Wow.
And so we're all excited. We all go get apartments, and it's kind of like unlocking another level, right? Like I said, we're so scrutinized and under a microscope. They keep us on the campus. Literally, we lived there for the first year plus or so. Um, so we finally feel like we're kind of breaking free. So we get into more trouble. Um, what was the question?
The
Dan?
question was, when you first went to prototype, were you
Oh,
terrified of the reactor or were
yeah,
you?
yeah. So yeah, okay. So like I said, so we're excited to get away, and at this point, we're excited to just freaking do it,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And so yeah, w- the thing it's all based off of is a old, antiquated. They call it an S5W reactor. It's just an old submarine reactor from the 40s or 50s or some shit. From the
Oh.
50s. From the 50s. They didn't have that shit in the 40s. And so, I mean, I have it right here. The USS Daniel Webster and the USS Sam Rayburn are the two submarines that they used. They chopped in half, and now I've heard they've actually added a third since I've left, um, to, I guess, keep up with the demand. But dude, when you get down in there, it's like the smells. It feels real. Um, you have to request permission to enter EOS. You're like, what is this? You feel like you're finally in the Navy. You
Cool.
know what I mean? Um, and it's obviously highly secured. So
Yeah.
Can we get
you
into that a little
know,
bit?
you do. And to it gives you a little bit of a big head. That's why by the time you get to the fleet, nukes, even though they haven't done anything on real ships yet, they're usually higher ranked than other people at that point,
Okay.
and they've been inflated the entire time, because they're surrounded by ex nukes that are think they're hot shit too. And so it is just kind of like every nukes are all the people that, like, didn't have to try in high school and still got good grades, and then got to college like me and were like, I don't know, this is fun, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I guess I'll do that. And so it's a bunch of smart people
Sure.
that are then thrust into the situation that they probably didn't really think through, and they can get through it, right? We all just get through it, but it sucks.
Yeah.
So everybody just turns to drugs and alcohol.
Kind of okay. So I have a question. To kind of go back to, you said it was like highly secured.
Yeah.
What what is like, why such high security? What makes it so classified?
Well, so the high security obviously is for the reactor itself is potentially dangerous if
Okay.
misused, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Um, but from a hush hush perspective, what you're really worried about, nuclear power isn't something that the nuclear navy, you know, has the market cornered on. Nuclear power is being used all over the world. It's just a matter of, do you have the resources and knowledge to do so, right?
Right.
Um, So because we have a specific way of doing it in the Navy, and those reactors are designed in a very specific way, those are the things that are kept secret. We have just books and books and books of procedures that take us through how to do every single possible thing you need to do in a reactor plant. So those things are confidential, right? Because you could take those out and somebody could be like, "All right, well, this is how they're doing it. This is how we're going to do it," right? But it's not like, I don't know, some secret formula that we have,
Espionage shit.
right? I mean, yeah, if you we had confidential marked on all our crap, and
Yeah.
no foreign
Yep. Secret no.
stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, secret, no foreign. But we would laugh about it. We were like, this is we're
Boy.
talking about metallurgy here.
But like that China boat that they in that 60 Minutes clip that we watched before this, their new was it a cruiser? It wasn't a destroyer, and I don't think it was a battleship, but it was diesel. Like
Yeah.
their
Yeah,
brand new
All of
one.
them are diesel.
And so it made me think like, is there something like, are we that good at keeping this one secret? America doesn't seem great at keeping a lot of secrets. Like I know we've destabilized governments over bananas, but this is like something that like, have we been successful in keeping the boring stuff out
It's a good
that
question.
like actually makes it so it's not
It's a
viable
really
yet?
good question.
Because that guy said, no, for context for listeners, we were watching a 60 Minutes clip, and I think it was one of the admirals, and he said that we are still a generation, like 10 to 20
That's
years
right.
ahead of nuclear technology than counterparts.
That's
And
right.
the evidence of China having all diesel ships, like, that's good evidence. Like, that's a
yeah,
good, like, show me what your evidence rules right there. They're not using
yeah,
nuclear. We are.
yeah. So what we have that nobody else had is the godfather of the nuclear navy, Admiral
Yeah.
Hyman G. Rickover. Whoop whoop. He was the man. His photo is plastered all over nuclear power school. When you're bored walking the halls trying to get your TAC hours in, you're looking at picture after picture of Hyman Rickover and
When you're
all his
studying.
accomplishments. Yeah, so I mean, you're in the study hall, right? I mean, you're there till 9 o'clock. You're a human being. You got to go walk around, right? So yeah, there's just all these Navy pictures, and here's the first nuclear submarine, the USS Nautilus, and of course Rickover has his hand in all of it. But what Rickover did was, he was just this hard ass that did it right from the get go. He they had a very well designed system that he said, you know what, let's just train these enlisted folks, but train them right.
Yeah.
And we'll use these procedures. That way, I mean, almost a smart trained monkey can get these things done.
Homer
Um,
Simpson.
right, right.
Uh,
For those who don't know, Homer Simpson's based off Matt Groening was in the nuclear navy,
oh,
and
really?
Yeah.
yeah, so
What?
he bases Homer Simpson off of his nuclear
I
navy
thought you were just making
guys.
No,
references
it's
that
a
were
real
aging
thing,
us.
dude. Matt
Uh,
Yeah,
Groening was in the nuclear navy. Yeah.
wow.
yeah. Um, but yeah, sorry. Well, I'll say it again. Where were we at with that? Feel free. Stop me when
You're
I'm
just
rambling.
you're just talking about
Yeah, we're
Rickover
good.
and what he was responsible for, the
I mean,
godfather
yeah,
of the navy.
like I said, he had everything set up so it was just so proceduralized that you couldn't fuck it up. And I can attest to that, man. Like I'm not the smartest cookie in the tin, and I sat there and did nuclear power. It
Yeah.
still sounds crazy when I say it out loud today. You know,
Pretty fucking smart. I've hung out with you a couple
I
times.
mean, yeah, I guess I'm okay. I'm doing okay for myself, but like, yeah, like I
I
said,
get what
they
you're
they
saying.
they had such a regimented system that if you put a human being through it and they get through it, a group of these people can run a nuclear reactor.
That's cool.
And they started with the sub, right? The USS Nautilus is late 50s was the first nuclear sub, and then immediately turned around and said, let's put this on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And so they didn't quite know how to do it. They shoved 8 nuclear reactors into a carrier, the USS Enterprise.
you had just one on the Reagan?
We had two,
Two.
two,
Okay.
two big ones. They had 8 small ones. And that was in the early 60s, you know? So, I mean, straight from the get-go, and that USS Enterprise ran until 2017 or something. So, quite some time, tried and true methods of nuclear operation. And it's kind of hard to explain, but when you're down in there in the plant, it feels like you're in some sort of 1950s movie set where it's just all like old lagging and piping and the smells. It's like this feels like they did this 40 years ago because they
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
And that they just, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You know, like if the technology works, why change it, right? Like, and that's kind of how it goes when they modernize it as they go. You know, ship to ship, situation by situation. Um, but yeah, man, shout out to Hyman Rickover. He did it right the first time, and you know, nobody's been able to recreate that in the world. You know, there's not been one serious nuclear accident in the United States Navy.
And so my understanding is that nuclear energy is just a far more efficient with less fuel type scenario as opposed to like a diesel situation. Is that the like what's the allure of
Mm.
nuclear energy over
Yeah,
diesel?
right. So obviously with diesel, you have just to get an insane amount of actual fuel and just burn it. You know,
Right.
you're a step away from the freaking guys down in the bottom of the Titanic shoving coal into the boilers, you know? Um, Now, that being said, what we're doing with the nuclear reactor is, in theory, very simple. What
Right.
we would say is hot rock makes steam.
Yep.
And the beauty behind it is that once you have it, it's just there. And now we're putting it through a military usage um, on a ship. But you know, we have these reactors all over the country in the world that just run at 100% power. It's very efficient. There's no it emits nothing but heat and energy, which is what we use to create well, steam basically, you
And the
know.
steam is what propels the propellers
On
essentially.
a yeah, on a ship, what is the nuclear reactor? I mean, yeah, so a nuclear reactor is you have a radioactive material and you use that to create energy and transfer it into steam to turn a turbine. And on a ship, you use those turbines to create power for the ship, to create propulsion for the ship, and to desalinate your water. So you're creating
Wait.
fresh water. And for us on a carrier, at least with the Reagan classes, um, we're using the steam for catapulting
Oh yeah.
the
That,
planes as
yeah.
well, to the point where when we're doing flight ops, we have to increase reactor power to compensate for that load on the system of those planes being taken off. You know, and you feel them wherever you're at on that ship. It's a big ass ship. You feel it in your butt. Boom. You know, you feel it every time it takes off the front.
That's
You know,
crazy.
and you can hear it every time it lands. It's that front. It's the thing hitting like the catapult hits like a, I don't know, some sort of like water dam or something. It comes to the end of the catapult and boom, hits something, and you feel that every time. Boom, boom, every single time they shoot it, because they have what, four catapults up there, so they're kind of always shooting it when they're shooting them. They're shooting them, you know.
Okay, so you have this inflated ego because you just finished the thing and you watch people wash out, and it is I absolutely I'd have the biggest ego in the world. I'd be like, I did it.
Bro, even the guys that pass with what we used to say is 2.5 to stay alive, based off of 4.0 GPA type of thing, you would have a
These good degrees.
you needed 2.5. And I remember like I got like a 2.72 on my final power school test. I was like, I don't give a shit, I'm done.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like I don't know, kind of like I would assume college is. When you get to the end of it, you're like, oh my god, I'm done, it's finished, I don't care what I got.
you go then to you went to a battleship or aircraft carrier, and
So
then
yeah,
how was that with like the ego, and then like your experiences? You said so different from all the other enlisted guys. Like, was that a transitional period? Was that pretty rough?
the last day of prototype, we showed up to get our, we'll say, the equivalent of a diploma, and orders. We get in our orders to go to the next spot, right? And so you need those orders in hand. And once you have those orders in hand, you don't really need anything else. So we got our orders, and we were standing around like that. We were still supposed to have this like graduation ceremony, and me and my roommate at the time, Chris, were standing around like, we don't need to be here for this, and just left.
We got some beers, just fucking drank and
Yeah,
celebrated.
yep. We literally went back to our apartment. I don't know if we left that day or partied that night and left the next day, but I mean, we got in my truck with his car on a U-Haul, on a towed U-Haul trailer, and made our way to Albuquerque the next day or that day.
Oh,
Or the
that's
next, anyway, we were getting the hell out of there is what we were doing.
Yeah.
okay. Did you have options, or did you just got the luck of the draw to go to San Diego?
You get, again, the illusion of options. You do put what you want, and then depending on what is available, you get it. And what's available changes, from day to day. So I obviously put San Diego, and then I think I put Washington after that, and then Norfolk, which is the only three options at the time for aircraft carriers. Now, my carrier, the Ronald Reagan, is actually now stationed in Japan.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. So now
Wow,
there's four options. So
dang, that's wild to me. Okay, is
so
there? Go ahead.
I was good. Well, did you have a question?
I did. I was gonna ask, is there some huge rivalry between Nimitz and the Reagan? Like, do you guys, is that a thing?
That sounds
Well,
like
so
it.
we were peer mates,
No. Oh yeah.
when I was there in San Diego. And so we, of course, knew a bunch of people on the Nimitz, from Power School and all that. And the thing was, though, that when they weren't there, we were, and when we weren't there, they were. So it was kind of like
Okay.
limited in how much interaction there was.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were. So here's the thing about the Nimitz. The Reagan at the time was the flagship. The Reagan was the newest carrier in the fleet,
Okay.
and the USS Nimitz is the oldest USS Nimitz class carrier in the fleet. The Nimitz was commissioned in 1972,
Really?
right? Yeah.
Wow.
So I remember we got down there, and our ship wasn't there, but the Nimitz was. So we had our friend. I mean, we were in the Navy at the time, so we were like, "Fuck, let's go on and see it." We were still excited.
You can do that? You can just go on other ships that you're not assigned to?
Yeah, you just request permission to come aboard.
Well,
Whoa.
that's cool.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that either.
Um, and I mean, I had to have a sponsor. They were my sponsor or whatever. They, I don't know, forget the
Like vouches for you kind of thing.
specific. Yeah, but they whatever. And we were walking around like, oh shit, this is crazy. But I mean, anyway, I was also on a Nimitz spouse carrier, and at the end of the day, it's damn near the same thing. But mine was commissioned in 2003, not 1972.
Much
So
younger.
Young bloods. You're a
Yeah.
young buck.
yeah, yeah.
I
So
really wanted it to be like college or like
Yeah.
sweet innocent hazing, like
Yeah.
the Nimitz. They wake up and there's like TP all over their flight deck, and they're like, "Those Reagan boys!" Fucking
and they got us again. No, no, no,
Reaganites.
no. We just went out and got obliterated, drunk together is what we did.
Typical.
Like I said, we knew these guys, from Power School. We knew these guys better than they knew their own shipmates, you know.
Right. Yeah, I could see that.
So
So as we record this, I believe so it's May 3rd as we record this. Yesterday the flagship, the newest aircraft carrier took off for their first deployment. Did you see that?
Ford.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
didn't know that's their first. So this is their maiden deployment.
that's what I heard.
Hmm. Yeah, I was on the second official deployment
Wow,
that the Reagan ever went on.
That's
They
wild.
that's
they
crazy.
were built in Norfolk, so they had to go from Norfolk to San Diego. But they only did one surge deployment out of San Diego. They were coming back from it when I arrived in San Diego. And for whatever reason, even though it was a brand new ship, we had a year of pierside maintenance. And so I showed up, had a month before they even got there, and then a year of sitting around while we worked on the ship. And yeah, it was the greatest year of my naval career.
I
It
bet
was
San
just a
Diego.
it was a year-long San Diego vacation, pretty much.
Awesome.
They were showing videos of this Ford, the new aircraft carrier, and they were shelling it with like
Yeah, that was
explosives to
crazy.
see to test it for defense. And I was like, it was some of the
It was
craziest shit I've ever
like
seen.
explosions, like
Like
off
depth
the
charge
bow or
literally.
whatever.
Yeah, like right off
Yeah,
the
Yeah.
bow,
yeah.
rocking it.
Did they do that for the Reagan too?
So one cool thing that we did after coming out of the maintenance period is we went for sea trials, and um, that included no air wing, just us ship boys, and we went and cranked up the speed, went as fast as we could,
Turn
Yes.
hella
went
crazy.
went fast and turned. So you got the aircraft carrier like that. So what I did is I went to my berthing, and in berthing is where we sleep. Um, there was a big long corridor from port to starboard, and so sat on one side, waited for us to turn, and then we would just slide down
Nice.
the P-way like a slide. It was the craziest thing ever because you're on this big, massive floating thing that never feels like it's even really. I mean, you barely feel like you're moving, really, when you're on that thing, and to feel it like you're on like in some sort of circus ride was pretty cool to see. That was definitely cool. But that was also our first time going underway, so it was cool that way too. Um, we hadn't gone underway a million times by that point, so
It's still novel.
we were
Yeah,
like, "Oh yeah, this is fun, guys! Yeah, nuclear
th-
power, let's
you guys think
go!"
that Ford class, because if it's their first time going out, those enlisted guys and officers probably, like it's a lot of their first times going underway probably, and they're
They'll have
probably in
they'll have
psyched up.
well, no, well for sure, but they'll have chiefs that have gone on other deployments on
Yeah,
other
absolutely.
ships.
Sure, but
I
They'll
can
there are some
really,
have
people that are there. That's their first
yeah,
deployment, and it's all
yeah.
new. But I
and with
got it.
everything going on in China, like I can imagine like a lot
Oh,
of those guys are
fuck
like
my
a
life.
lot of those kids that are out there for the first time, they're just probably like my eyes would be glued open and I would be very tired by the time we came back from deployment.
I'd be more worried about being on a carrier now than I was back then. That's
It
Those
for
looked.
sure.
missiles are terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that that's what they were working on. And
You talking about China?
the China's
The
the
land based?
surface, yeah, the land-based
Yeah.
missiles from the coast. And
Yeah.
the lady on 60 Minutes was saying that they think the first battle will be in space because it's just about if you can take out the satellites for that shit.
Take out their communication devices. Yeah.
God
It's
damn.
yeah. Who knows? I mean, goodness gracious, it's all speculation. But
It's all speculation too.
but
Freaking Navy.
everybody is ramping up, including us. So um. But yeah, that's probably we'll talk about that later for sure.
I'm gonna say
Uh,
we now because when I like you're talking about the aircraft carrier, and I didn't really appreciate it, but on World of Warships this morning, like I definitely turned my carrier really hard. But like now I'm gonna do them like wee as I do it. That's gonna make me feel
careful,
a lot
careful, careful.
better.
Yeah,
Nice
I mean,
hard.
they had to go and chain everything down in the hangar bay and on the flight deck. There's a series of uh I've forgotten so many terms and whatnot. The eyes or whatever. Anyway, things that they can chain to, and kind of just sporadically all over the deck, right? So you have a plane anywhere, and you can kind of boop chain down there, chain down there, chain down there, chain down there, and we're down. Um, so yeah, they would do that before we would do any sort of real maneuvers. But again, like I said, we only did that during sea trials.
deployment.
Yeah.
Yes.
You went on like 1.5 or 2 solid actual deployments?
I did one full with some extra cheese on the back end, uh, and then on the second deployment, I went out knowing I wasn't going to finish it. So that was very comforting. I spent more time on the second one playing Tiger Woods golf than anything. But yeah, so yeah, deployment. So like I said, we had our first year in San Diego, chilling, hanging out, living the life, and then we started doing sea trials. Um, and then in 2007, we were really ramped up and like getting ready for deployment. Yeah, you got to train up the air crew at that point. They fly on from Miramar or somewhere.
Yeah.
And we just train up and down the coast of California. Um, in fact, one time we were training in December of 2007, getting ready for deployment in 2008. And we were off the coast of Baja California, and we got a distress call from a cruise ship.
Hmm.
And there was a teenager on the cruise ship that had their appendix burst, and they couldn't
Whoa.
get to a hospital or whatever. So we, in the middle of the night, just turned and all steam ahead, all full ahead, all as far south as we could get until we were within range for helicopters. And then helicopters popped off, grabbed her, brought her back on board, and then the surgeon took care of her and saved her.
Did they remove her appendix on board?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
And
epic,
then she stayed
bro.
with us on board until we got back into San Diego, and there was like news crews everywhere and
This is like my
everything.
favorite military story.
That's a
Like,
good one.
this is what absolutely our tax dollars should be spent doing. Like,
That's a good
Oh,
one.
dude,
there's a
wait till I
person
get to
out
the Philippines later.
That story makes the Coast Guard look like shit.
Where were you guys?
Yeah, you have one
We were just
job
training,
to
like,
do.
yeah, like
And the
where were
Navy
you
was
guys?
bored and had nothing else to do. They're like, we
Like,
got
this is
wars.
Mexico, wink, wink. Like, where are you guys at?
Damn.
Anyway, yeah. So deployment. So, we were 2008, May 2008. We go on what we call RIMPAC, which is military speak for Pacific Rim. Um, and we head out of San Diego, and just head west, towards towards Hawaii, basically at first. And at first, the way you works for at least for us for on the carrier. I don't know if it's for the whole strike group or for just in the carrier, but we work in boxes is what we called it. And so you would have like an area of this ocean that you would have for that day or that period of time. And so you would kind of do like a mowing, like you're mowing the lawn back and forth kind of sensation in that box. And then while you're doing that back and forth, when you're in direction of the wind or whatever, you're doing flight ops, and then you turn back around, blah 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 blah. Then you go back into the wind and you do flight ops, then you turn around, and then a few hours later you get the box that's, I don't know, 100 nautical miles west, and then you boom to the next box we go, and so you just go box to box to box to box to box to box all the way across the ocean. And the first land I saw after we left San Diego was actually Hawaii, but we didn't pull in. We were close enough to see the island. I was close enough to see literally the lava dropping into the ocean and creating steam, to which I got really excited for because I knew that I might have cell phone reception. Ran
Ah,
downstairs, grabbed my flip phone at the time, went outside and made a phone call to Natalie, which was really cool. I was like, "Hey, we're by Hawaii. Can you hear me?" It was kind of one of those things like, I don't even know if this is gonna work. But yeah, I was out there on one of the catwalks on the ship having a phone call. I'm probably would have gotten in trouble for if I got caught. So anyway, then we kept pushing further west, time zone by time zone, um, towards Hong Kong. Hong Kong was our first destination. And after a month and a half at sea, we finally hit port. in Hong Kong. I didn't get the first night off, so I had a bunch of my buddies flooding back onto the ship after at curfew time, just belligerent, going through the berthing, like it's first deployment, people, first port call, just hammered drunk. And I mean, we're talking, this is a 45-minute ride from the ship to the pier, so like they had time to sober up. They didn't. Uh, anyway, super excited. I spent all night just standing up there on the flight deck or out on the smoke deck, just staring at the city of Hong Kong. We were sitting right there in the middle of the Bay of Hong Kong. It was amazing. Um, and yeah, so then we went into Hong Kong for our first port call. Had a blast. Hong Kong's an amazing city. Um, just unlike anywhere else I've ever been in the world. It's surrounded by these tall hills that just dip right into this big, just massive city, and you'd be standing there looking at this giant skyscraper, and then you turn around at this and be seeing this cheap, big apartment complex building with bamboo hanging out this windows with clothes hanging off them drying, like you're in a third world country, but then you see $1 billion skyscraper next to it. But Hong Kong, totally cool, amazing place to go to. We're supposed to be there for, I don't know, 4 days. On day 3, me and my Liberty buddy are walking around, and another American, clearly military guy, flags us down and says, "Hey, you guys with the ships?" We're like, "Yeah, we're with the ship." And he's like, "We all got to get back. There's a typhoon coming. We got to get out of here." And so we're like, "We're about to go drinking. All right, let's go back." And we got in line and joined this, thousands of people trying to get back onto this ship before it took off. And so yes, so this typhoon hits the Philippines head on, straight on. We obviously divert around it or something. I don't really know, but with that extra time, we spent after the typhoon left the area, providing humanitarian aid to the Philippines.
Wow.
We rolled up in there to the island of Panay, and I mean I could see it again. Anytime I could see land from the ship, I was out there looking at it like a dog watching the cars drive by at the front of the house.
Did you guys get specific ribbons for that?
Yes, we got a uh, humanitarianism, humanitarian. I don't know. We got a humanitarian ribbon for that specifically. But we didn't just go out there and take pictures in front of the Philippines. We um, we set up like fire bucket brigades, kind of like, if you can imagine, like you have the hangar bay, and then you have the maze of chutes and ladders down into the stores of the ship, and we would take the pallets of bottled water and rice and stuff, and just boom, 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 and we were bringing it up to the flight deck to ship over there.
Wow.
I think after all was said and done, we ended up sending 520,000 pounds of rice, water, and supplies from our carrier alone.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, that's dope.
So that was kind of cool. Um, that being said, 400 of us stayed behind in Hong Kong, and boy, were we jealous of those fools. They
I
ended
got
up
left behind.
yeah, they got left behind, um,
Oh
and
no.
didn't have anything to do. I mean, right. What are they going to do? They eventually ended up flying out to Guam, which is where we went next. And yeah, they spent a week and a half, from what I hear, just getting drunk as they could during the day, because every day was they thought every day was their last day,
Yeah.
right? They're like every day they're like, we're going to get flown back to the ship, um, yada yada yada. Anyway, they didn't. They didn't ever get flown back to the ship. The only good news was we got to do that, and we also got tax-free money because we were deployed and they weren't. You
That's
know. So anyway, so off we go to Guam. This is all part of RIMPAC. Again, we haven't really started it necessarily at this point, but throughout we're doing these exercises with all these different countries, right? Like Australia, Canada, Denmark, a bunch of kind of like the Western countries you would think. But then more of the countries in the area are allies: Japan, the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, um, uh, Thailand, India. All these different navies would come in, and we would do these military exercises together, including at the time China.
Yeah.
China was included in this rim pack exercise that we did. They aren't anymore now that they've been
Asshole.
terraforming islands
Yeah.
in the area. Yeah,
Wow.
they don't join us in RIMPAC anymore, from what I hear. Um, but anyway, so we went out to Guam. Guam was pretty cool. Guam was kind of like the way I kind of described it was like a cheap version of Hawaii. Um, it's Hawaii. You can tell you're still in America. Guam, there's like one downtown area with like all the westernized hotels and restaurants and stuff where it feels like you're in America, and then the rest feels like you're in one of these other countries like Malaysia or something. It just, you can tell you're not in Kansas anymore. You know what I mean? There's no McDonald's or anything like that, anything like that. But Guam was cool. Um, and then from Guam, we ended up going to, and I might get some of the order incorrect, but we ended up going to Malaysia. We pull into there, go to Kuala Lumpur. Um, that was a really cool city. Again, a lot of these days, we have duty days everywhere we pull in. One of those days that we're there, at least, we have a duty day, which means we're on that ship for 24 hours straight. We're not just there in port having a port call. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, Malaysia. Malaysia is one of those. It was the third one, so at that point we'd kind of known how to go out and maximize our drinking time, because again, it's all about just kind of having these moments of release, because ship life is so unlike anything else. It almost feels like you're in space almost. So like when you touch ground, you're like you're not normal. You're like your brain shuts off, and everybody loses their mind. Anyway, Malaysia, that's our third spot. I didn't do anything cool at this point. I still wasn't doing any touristy stuff. Um, but from there, we end up going to Singapore. By Singapore, um, we're probably a few months in at this point, a couple months in at this point. Singapore was amazing. Singapore is a beautiful place to go to. Singapore is kind of more modernized, not kind of more westernized. When we were there, they were building that big, giant casino that you see in Crazy Asians that they go to. Um,
Crazy Rich
but
Asians.
Crazy Rich Asians
Crazy Asians is a different movie
Crazy
entirely.
Asians.
You're
You got
right.
some
You're right.
Singapore slings when you're in Singapore?
What's that?
You got some Singapore slings when you're in Singapore?
I
I
don't know
flew
what Singapore slings are.
I flew Singapore Air, and that was the drink that someone was like,
Oh.
the Singapore drink you order is Singapore slings.
Oh, really?
Were
I don't even, they were good. I don't remember how many I had, but they gave me a mini of them, so I
Okay.
would fall
They
asleep.
work.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
man,
Singapore looks hella dope. Singapore
it's
looks
beautiful.
fire.
Like it's I don't know. We rolled up in there and they were like, "Oh, you can't spit on the ground and stuff, and like you can't jaywalk. You're gonna get arrested and beat with canes or something." And it's not like that. I mean, it's a normal ass city. People are walking before the thing turns green. It's a normal ass city. Um, but it was the most. If I'm going back to anywhere, it's either Hong Kong or Singapore.
Hmm.
Let's just put it that way. I mean, I bought I bought my first camera in Singapore, so there's some like my first nice Nikon D60 camera. I had been researching it for weeks because you have nothing to do but think about stuff when you're on the ship. Um, but anyway, so Singapore was cool. Um, we there's this thing called the Four Floors of Horrors that we visited. That is basically like a strip mall that becomes a well, Well, it just becomes a series of bars that, as you can imagine, people coming from a ship, there's a certain amount of debauchery that goes on, right? It's kind of hard to talk about because it's like, it's in the moment you see it and it feels normal. But in hindsight, it's like, guys, it's a little pump the brakes here, guys.
Yeah.
But all the debaucherous things you can assume sailors are doing when they pull into these ports, they're doing, you know. Um, Fortunately for me, I was married by the time I got to the fleet, so I
Doesn't
was living
stop some people,
vicariously.
does it?
No, it does. It definitely doesn't. But for me, it was very easy for me to just live vicariously through others.
Right.
Um, it's also cheaper to go on deployment that way. But um, everybody's got a Liberty buddy, and you have to stay with that Liberty buddy. And
Battle buddy.
That's kind of like a
you
battle buddy.
can't. What are you gonna do if your Liberty buddy wants to partake of something?
Yeah.
What are you gonna do, right? So let's put it that way.
That's how you're gonna say that story? All right.
No, yeah. I mean, it's just
I got it. I've been there, and so I was like, oh, okay.
it's yeah. Like I said, in the moment, it's just very normal, natural. There was this spot in Hong Kong where Liberty buddies met up with Liberty buddies, met up with Liberty buddies, and we were like, where should we go? One of the Liberty buddies wanted to get laid, so we were like, okay, well, let's find out how that works. This is the middle of the day. We're in Hong Kong. How does this work? Walking along. Kind of shady looking dude. Dude just walks up straight to him and asks, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's this
Like me to be-
establishment down here, and we were like, well, it looks like we're just. I mean, looks like we're in the middle of the city. Looks kind of like, well, this is all it. This is all it is. And we walk down to this strip mall looking area, and walk into what looks like a country club, and they sit us down in this waiting area with these big reclining seats. Each seat has like a carton of cigarettes in like a little container next to it. Then they bring us green tea. Meanwhile, the guy has gone off to go shower and do his thing, get ready for whatever, and they're treating us like, oh, this is a normal day, normal 11 o'clock a.m. You guys want some green tea? All right, here's some green tea. Here's some remotes for the TVs over here if you guys get bored. Like totally clean, like I said, country club locker room kind of atmosphere. Like uh, classical music playing in the background. Totally just not something you would normally see in America. But sailors come into town and do what sailors do, and it's just no questioning it, and it's just not weird, until you get back from deployment and you're telling stories about it, and you're like, wow, yeah, we just sat there, smoked cigarettes while homeboy went and took care of his business out back, But that's just how it goes, Everybody's doing it.
Mhm.
Everybody's doing it.
When you gotta go, you gotta go.
Yeah, normal human needs, man. I mean, what do you?
People fuck.
Uh,
The
what
Spartans
is it?
did it.
Yeah, and
You guys
what
should
else?
have
They
laid
didn't
out
have a
some
choice.
dog skins and wolf skins, and then you lay down, and then you just roll around, and then you find each other.
You got the nice campfire going.
Yeah.
I mean, you do what you got to do. You do what you got to do.
Mhm.
It's just deployment is deployment, man. Like, it-
Oh.
I don't want to say prime. You're more primal, but like you're so sober when you're out to sea, and then you go so far the other way when you're in port. It's just flippity floppity, flippity floppity. Anyway, um, as far as the rest of the countries I visited, from Singapore, we go to South Korea. South Korea was interesting. Got into some trouble there, and then went to Japan. And by the time I get to Japan, I'm finally doing like actual um, tourist stuff. I go to Nagasaki. I went and saw where we dropped the bomb. Deployment. So RIMPAC is basically the first. You're spending your time making your way out to effectively the Persian Gulf, right? Because that's where we were all going at the time in 2003, supporting Operation Enduring Freedom. So after Singapore, we hit South Korea, Japan. By this time, I'm starting to actually kind of do things in port calls and whatnot. Visited Nagasaki where we dropped the nuclear bomb, and that's I went to a freaking aquarium in South Korea. Uh,
Oh, you've been
so
to
in,
Korea?
yeah, so the Busan, South Korea. Um, so anyway, we end up in Dubai. We go to the Persian Gulf. We spend our time in the Persian Gulf supporting FD, troops on the ground in Afghanistan effectively. So we're shooting off planes. They fly over Pakistan, do their thing in Afghanistan, come back, fly over Pakistan, come back to us. That's what they're doing. And after that, we make our way through the Strait of Hormuz. We go to Dubai, right? Dubai is crazy. It's like Vegas on steroids. You can tell there's nothing but money everywhere. You only stay inside. There is no going outside because it's 120 degrees. Um, but anyway, the visiting ports part of a deployment is really not the bread and butter. The bread and butter deployment is the waking up every day and going on watch. And as far as a nuclear training is concerned, you're constantly working for the next watch station, working for the next qualification, studying, and until you're qualified, reactor operator as an ET anyway, you're seen as not done. So you don't have free time necessarily. If you can sneak a movie in, you're lucky. You try to enjoy some things that other people are enjoying and hope that they forgot that you weren't fully qualified while you were standing next to them. At one point, we did have Creed fly on board, and
The band Creed.
the band Creed flew on board at one point. They did a concert up on the flight deck. And do I care about Creed? No, not necessarily, but it could have been in Barney for all I care. I was going to watch that shit on the flight deck. Um, it was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool that
how
they did that.
how often are you going to see a concert on the flight deck? Um, we did one Steel Beach picnic is what we call it, where we do like a barbecue thing on the flight deck where everybody comes up and um, hangs out on the flight deck and eats hamburgers and shit. Um, we attempted a swim call that got canceled because we were who knows what. Swim call being where they lower the elevator of the hangar down to the hangar bay level, and then people jump off into the water and like swim around to the back of the ship and get back on. Never did that. We did cross the equator. They did that whole shellback ceremony, which is a historical ceremony where basically you give people who haven't crossed the equator yet a bunch of shit. Um, and it seemed very summer campy to me. So I ended up just saying, you know what? I'm going to take watch. I'll stand watch while you guys are doing that. I'll go ahead and just go down to the plant and write down some logs because I don't want to be involved in this shit that I don't care about. But anyway, on the way back from the Persian Gulf, on the way back from Rimpak, we end up hitting Hawaii. We pull into Pearl Harbor, go right past the Arizona right there,
Crazy.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
That
that's gotta
felt,
mean something as a sailor passing that, right? Like
yeah.
that's
I mean,
meaningful.
again, I was one of those guys that made a point to go up on the flight deck when we were pulling in or out of somewhere. We don't do that whole everybody's in their whites at parade rest around the perimeter thing. We never did that. That's just for commercials and shit. But I would always go out there and if it takes us 2 hours to pull into this port, I'm standing up there for 2 hours. What else I got to look at? Um, I would go up with friends and we would watch flight ops for sometimes for hours. What else are we gonna do? A lot of cigarettes. Smoked a lot of cigarettes. So sometimes literally just for the sake of not being able to do anything else, you know. And sometimes they would take that away from us too, and we would have to go sneak off into places and just kind of find a place to do it. But yeah, if you one really kind of overall way of putting how I went through my first deployment was I left San Diego at a very thin, probably 170, 175. I'm a 6.5 foot tall guy. I ended up weighing 135 pounds when I got back from my first deployment.
Jesus.
So it wasn't the healthiest thing for me. I didn't enjoy it. And yeah, it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Going out to sea and staying out there and just dealing with it for 7.5 months straight.
You have any
Anyway.
questions after a really cool deployment story? Deployment sucks for anybody who has not
Yeah.
deployed and who like it's deployment is fucking ass. But it makes us who we are, and there's definitely I mean this is a relatively controversial thing to say, but like there's a big difference between veterans who have deployed and veterans who there's a reason that there's such a thing as the VFW. When me and my buddy Alan went to the VFW for the Marine Corps ball once, we were like, "How do you join this?" And they're like, "Have you deployed?" And we are like, "Yeah," and
Mhm.
like, "Then you can join." You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I totally respect all veterans. Like, military service is military service, dude. But there's just something to be said about deployment. I take so much pride in saying that all my family members who have been in the military, every single one, have deployed. I don't
Yeah.
have one family member who was like, "Yeah, I was in the army and we didn't do shit." It's
Yep.
every single one.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um,
There are the deployed and those who have been affected by it and the non-deployed. That is for sure.
so I have a letter here from that Clayton wrote to me. I wish there was a date on here. I think there might be. No, there's no date. How dare you? I got this letter while I was in boot camp in 2008 while Clayton was in Sasebo, Japan. And so I'm going to read some of this. I had to highlight not certain things not to read. Some of it got pretty dicey.
Did I tell you about some port calls in there?
No, there's just some things that's just not suitable for civilians' ears.
Yeah. Right on. Right on.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
Appreciate the discretion.
Yeah.
I thought you were just gonna read the highlight. I was like, why are you doing 2 sentences, man?
It was easier to highlight the things
You're just
not
gonna read
to
you're
read.
just gonna read this butthole stuff? Okay, cool.
All right, so yeah, just imagine me running into the bathroom to read this because we weren't in our boot camp. They weren't like, "Hey, it's read your letter time." It's like, take the fucking letter and put it in your box, and it's fucking business as usual. So it says, "Hey Spence, what's up? As you know, I'm writing this from the deck plates of the USS Ronald Reagan. I started typing this as we were sitting in the harbor of Sasebo, Japan. I went to Nagasaki, which is where we dropped one of the atomic bombs in 1945. It was a pretty amazing sight. So I just finished watching the opening scene of Gladiator, so I'm all pumped up on manliness. This movie is lathered in so much masculinity, it makes me want to dish out golden man nuggets like a ninja all over everybody's face. By the time you get this, we'll probably be on the way into the Gulf. Up until now, we've been doing what's called a Westpac, which is showing our, quote, big stick, end quote, to the countries of the Pacific Rim. In
Yep.
Japan, we have a mixed audience. Some places literally have people standing outside that hold up their arms in an X signal, which means they don't want us to go in. Fine, I'm happy to drink my beer somewhere else. On the other hand, we have Japanese girls coming up to us asking us to take pictures with us. I think it may have something to do with the fact that I'm a 6.5 feet tall man, which puts me like 2 feet above everyone else walking the streets. I'll probably have been through Malaysia by the time you get this, so I'll just relay that to you through emails. I figure a written letter from a United States warship to the place where Marines are made was a significant enough to warrant a required postage. I was thinking the other day about what it means to have you serving under the same flag as I am. Right now, you're training to be a part of the effort. However, Marines that slept in the same rack you're in right now are probably in the Middle East right now. That means that the fighters we're shooting off our flight deck are providing cover and protection to those very Marines that went through what you're accomplishing right now. I trust that you're getting through everything with ease. I know I just went through Navy boot camp, but I still know what it's like. Not to mention, I'm out here for 6 months straight. I'd take a stint in boot camp again over this crap any day. Foreign ports are cool, but seeing nothing but water for weeks at a time is not something humans get used to, trust me.
Mm-hmm.
I've read some of the letters you've sent home, and it sounds very similar to my experience. Like I said, it's only something that you and I will have the ability to share. Not even Dad has any idea what it's like. I'd be willing to bet that your boot camp is somewhat more enjoyable than ours. We had a lot of in-class instruction along with firefighting and flooding training. I would have rather shot guns and learned how to kick ass. I also read what Uncle Aaron wrote to you, and it seems that there was a lot that we did the same, even way back when. I thought that was interesting. We've crossed the equator and we're having a shellback ceremony. You may remember it from the Carrier show. It's basically an excuse for the senior people to haze the junior people. It's gay, but it's Navy tradition. Hey, this is a
Oh,
this
fuck.
is a different time, folks. All right, different time. Clayton doesn't say that kind of stuff
Hey,
anymore.
Nope.
but your stories are consistent though.
Yeah, that dude. Yeah, he's telling it.
Right? Yeah. Good memory.
We've also
Oh,
been watching a lot of the Olympic Games recently, and it's
oh yeah.
interesting to have a group of uniformed men sitting in a lounge cheering on our fellow countrymen. It's one sporting event you know everyone is rooting for the same team. After watching us dominate in almost all events, I came to a dramatic realization. America is badass.
Fuck yeah.
Fucking Rivadirci.
Hell yeah.
Over the last few weeks, I've become more and more numb to the idea of being stuck out here in the middle of the ocean. I find myself wandering around the ship in an almost zombie like fashion. Waking up, standing watch, and eating are being done robotically at this point. You just got to keep the routine and remember that there's really nothing you can do but be a man and deal with it. Well, I'm going to send this off. I would say you could write letters to me via the family if you want, because the mail will get there a lot sooner than it would get here. Mom has been sending me the letters you send them, so that's working out well enough already. The more I read them, the more I can honestly say you're going through pretty much the same thing I did. Oh, yeah, when you said it's like being in Lost, we're talking about the show Lost. I completely know what you mean. I may have written this to you in another letter, but I would literally be home for several minutes at a time and then would snap back to the reality of boot camp hitting me in the face.
Hmm.
What I did was talk to people and find ones that you'll be moving on with to your next school. Some of the best friends I've ever had been people that I've grown to know due to being in the military. Only you and the people you're in with know what it's like. Not even family has any idea what emotions you're going through. Well, keep doing what you're doing. Remember home, remember family, remember your friends, including your new ones. You'll realize soon enough that's why you're doing all of this. Many things change. Strength and honor. Electronics technicians, second class. Clayton Schultz, United States Navy. Pretty epic.
Hoo-yah.
Yeah, pretty. That's some brothers at warship,
Yeah.
folks. That's some like two brothers fucking like that's
Not
like
bad.
our grandchildren will read that and shit.
I'm proud of myself. I thought that was going to be just totally childish the entire time.
No,
I left it out. No, it's there.
That part's in there. Okay.
There's some childish shit in there. Yeah,
Good,
there's
good,
some
good.
like
Okay.
not good for ears things
Yeah.
in there.
the part about you being like just conceptualizing the fact that like you're going to be on the boat that's potentially giving cover to your brother,
Yeah, that's
like
dope.
that, like
That's cool.
for
That's a
sure
hell of
teared up,
poetic.
like chills, like that's
Yeah.
what a concept to have. Like the world's so big and small at the same time.
Yeah.
There were a few times they would show us like footage from, I guess, the planes or helicopters or something. And I remember one time specifically there was like this infrared view of like this tree line. And they were like, yeah, so there was a group of Marines in this tree line. And then they were getting hit from this snipers across the way, in this other group of trees over here, and they pointed it out. And like, here's where we come in, and it just the whole screen just goes pure white, and they just they blew them out of the off the face of the earth. And I was like, oh shit, like that's literally us with freshy Marines in there, and Spencer's in boot camp, ready to go there. You know, it was just all very tangible in that moment.
Yeah.
So
I would say like being deployed, um, from my perspective, one of the most impressive things out of all of the militaries that I saw and was also in, I was like, damn, the Navy really is pretty dope. Like we would be on the ground in Afghanistan and see Navy jets fly over and we're like, they're gonna ruin someone's day pretty hardcore right now. Like that's pretty wild.
yeah,
Um,
man, it's a well-oiled machine for sure.
That is true.
Um,
They trained for this.
like I was talking about in that letter, just wandering around the ship, there were definitely, you know, I can still see it now. There'd be some moments where I'd be walking around the ship and you'd just be passing all these people and everybody's going somewhere and everybody's doing something and you're like, it's like a anthill and like, but everybody has their job, everything's happening, and it was just being part of it was incredible. I hated it, but it was incredible.
yeah, it's
So,
much better in hindsight, that's for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
oh, of course, because you're not doing it.
Let's wrap this up with some quick talk about China.
Yep. China,
China. So
China.
for those of you who have not or don't know what we're talking about, what I would recommend doing when you have some free time is typing into YouTube 60 minutes March 19th, 2023 and it talks about the state of the Navy and essentially the direction that naval warfare is going in as well as the age of our ships versus the age of China's ships. And it definitely looks like there's going to be an intersection in theory that the American ships are going to get old as the same time that the China ships are going to get new, right? And China is actively making way more aircraft carriers and battleships than the Navy currently is, and it is um kind of concerning considering the amount of hostility in the South China Sea currently, where China just feels as though it's theirs, and Germany and the United States will all the time sail through there and be like, it's international waters. Like,
Yeah.
it's the ocean, it's planet Earth. We're allowed to be here. And
Yep.
so it's pretty scary. See, I would say the scariest part was they watching the China do drills, launching those rockets into aircraft carrier.
Yeah,
Oh
dude.
my God, dude, that's
Yeah.
That
So
was
they
fucked up.
painted aircraft like an aerial view of an aircraft carrier on the ground,
yeah,
and China is practicing launching these rockets into that, and it's like, well, I have a well
well,
that really answers that,
right.
doesn't it? Like
Well, we know what they're
they're doing,
doing. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
Um,
that's a Nimitz size, like
mhm,
small
exactly,
craft.
exactly.
mhm. Yeah. And like I was saying earlier, the closest thing we got to that was when we were going through the Straits of Hormuz. If you pull up on the map later, going from the Gulf of Oman into the Persian Gulf, there's like this there's a pinch point. And in that pinch point was the only time we ever just didn't give a shit about flight ops and went full steam. We're just trying to get through here as fast as we can. And the
Mm.
way they put it to us, because what you're doing is there's a tip here, right at the United Arab Emirates, right to the north of you. That's all Iran, and so we were we were more scared of Iran at that point than anything else um, that we came close to on that in that ship, right? And so the way they put it to us was like, yeah, they just right over there on the coast, they just have missiles pointed at us. If they want to shoot them off, they can. And so that was the only time we ever thought about it. Now, watching what's going on now, China was part of our Rim Pack, our West Pack, back in 2008. Now they're not part of it because part of our Rim Pack is to show them that we have the power out there, you know. Um, but it seems like it's really a matter of geometry where you have Taiwan right there because it's all kind of hinged on Taiwan, right? And Taiwan is there splitting the South China Sea from the East China Sea, and everything more out board or whatever, more close, for the Philippines, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Malaysia, Brunei, all these countries are allies with the United States and are with the West, you know. So Taiwan being seemingly a fence sitter, if you will, is kind of that pinch point now, that I was talking about before. And now that we know that this, I mean, goodness gracious, how many thousands of miles of coastline that they got there? Any carrier in that region, I'd be pretty scared. We have plenty of countermeasures, don't get me wrong, but I don't know how many missiles they got up on there, but if they shoot hundreds, something's getting through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To
Well,
one of them.
they're saying the scenario is like 2 carriers down. Like, holy shit.
Aren't they calling the rockets aircraft, like aircraft carrier destroyers?
I mean, that's their purpose, right?
That is
Yes.
wild.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
I hear part of that 60 Minutes thing based on what you're just talking about. It was like, here's what we see when we see Taiwan. It doesn't really make sense. And then they just
That was cool.
rotated the map.
That was really
and
well
they're like,
done.
this is what you should see. It's literally the gate. And you're like, oh, it's literally that I turned it. I just needed to turn the map.
Yeah.
Maybe
Right.
it's just add a graphic like right here. Just like,
I will.
turn
Yeah.
the map.
It all makes sense in post.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, pretty scary stuff. Like
that's what I'd be worried
it does
about.
actually seem like, we talk about this all the time where everyone's like warfare is going to be different in the future, and there's going to be drones, and it's going to be the battle of the infrastructure. They'll just hit our infrastructure. It's like, well, it does
And it
look
will.
like, and it's true, right? But it does look, as far as like the military is concerned, the future warfare might actually be on the ocean. It
Yeah.
looks like the
It's a both
Navy might
and
see some
situation.
shit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're over here in China, yeah, they're big and they got hella people, but like everybody's sitting here on their front doorstep checking them out. Like, yo, we see you. We're
Mhm.
right here.
And
Fuck with Taiwan, we dare you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And submarines are wild.
And yes, they know that. They know how much we have.
That was the biggest
Right at
flex of the entire show. Was
it was.
they're like they can't figure out how to find the fucking submarines, and all the fucking submarines are like,
Yeah, exactly.
the one thing we got.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing
It could
that
be literally anywhere.
Yeah,
Run
that's
quiet, run
terrifying.
deep.
Terrifying. It's
So-
fucking cool though.
I mean, North Korea, North Korea. You know what I mean? Like they're children compared to
China.
China.
What was the dates they're saying? The dates to watch for it's kind of shocking because it's like us in World War II, like when we built our second fleet to challenge Japan. Because like we beat Japan because we built that second naval fleet during the World War II, and so like that's how we were able to beat them. And like Wailetti Gulf was like kind of it for them.
Yep.
And then now, like their rate of infrastructure and industrialization is why they're saying 2027 to 2030, you gotta be looking out, America.
Right.
Like shit could happen between those 3 years.
And it's really sad too, because they were saying like, well, building's different over there because they're able to do it. It's state sponsored funding, and the labor is much cheaper in China. That's how it works when there's less rules.
Yeah.
Shit.
But to bring it back to earlier, we have a generation of knowledge on the water dominating with nuclear power. You know what I mean? They have 2 little wompy ass diesel carriers.
Yeah.
We have a dozen nuclear carriers.
The failed Navy prototypes though were hilarious. That destroyer looks so dumb. It's like me. It was me in high school. Like draw a cool like spaceship kind of boat, like
Triangles.
Yeah, it's
the
polygons.
LCS,
and then the LCS, the little crappy ship.
little crappy ship. I thought the best part also the juxtaposition of like her talking to that real as fuck pilot who's like, I'm gonna be hella like straightforward with you and give you my honest answers. And then they talk to like the dude who's like working in Washington for the Navy, and she's like, how is everything? Is the Navy prepared? He's like, yeah. Yes,
we are.
Everything's great.
Yes.
You're not concerned?
Yes.
No.
I'm not gonna take shit.
And like and here's the thing, like coming out of that environment, I know how much freaking training, drilling, constantly, all the time. They're ready for anything.
Totally.
We are ready.
I never get to talk to my brother. I haven't talked to my brother in years.
His brother.
So he was an officer.
He is right now.
Is
Is.
Okay, so he's still in that mindset where it's still like super secret-y and shit.
Has to
Like,
be.
what's yeah, right. Wait
My
till he gets
brother's like
10 years out.
my brother is who you want. He's the only reason why I'm cool with nuke subs because like if my brother was in charge of that, like, he'd make the right choice because he's a huge nerd. So it's great. I love him so much. Me
Nerds, yeah,
on War of the Warship, like I send those torpedoes off as soon as I can, and they never hit their target. I'm like, I should never be in charge of the boat.
I was bored.
Dude, it's all so procedured out.
Exactly.
We're all just cogs in the little machine, and like we can't screw it up. You know what I mean? We have to be really. They got us so locked in. We're, after boot camp and especially after training, we're so locked in. We're not going anywhere. Come on, we get away with our little drugs and alcohol while we're in San Diego, hanging out and stuff, and then come back to the ship. We take it. They drug test us constantly. They have us under a microscope.
You don't have a choice but to be squared away. You have
Yeah.
no choice.
Right.
Yeah.
You could be
That's
that's how so many people become functioning alcoholics.
totally. I worked under a captain who told me that he only goes on deployments so that he gets a break from drinking. And I was like, yikes.
Ugh.
But yeah, it's true. The military is like, like a well-oiled machine. That's why Clayton was talking about that reality TV show where they're like trying to be like do special forces stuff, and Clayton was like, I can't watch that shit. There's no accountability.
Exactly.
Anyway,
Yeah, dude.
anything else that we want to? Any question? I think that.
Thank you for
Yeah, dude. We
going
appreciate
through
you
all
for
that.
doing
That was
that.
awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm not. I don't know. I try not to be. I talk a lot of shit about the Navy, but I try not to be too much of a Debbie Downer. I mean, it did inevitably give me my systems knowledge, if you will, to move forward in my career later in life. And the traveling was fun, and the friendships were interesting. The friendships were good. Some of them were bad. There was certainly a whole lot of perspective building, and that's something that is invaluable. And yeah, like I said, I needed from the beginning earlier. I needed to get out of that little rut that I was in, in my late teens. And the structure of the Navy, if you will, with the lack of choice, the contractual obligation, um, inevitably and painfully made me who I am today. So,
Totally.
yeah, that's where we're at now. So,
Well, 40 veterans a day are killing themselves, so we're happy that you're alive. I'm happy that I'm alive, and if we can get the message out there that this is a platform for other veterans to speak
yeah,
about what their experiences were, that's fucking awesome. And if we can
Absolutely.
save some lives, that's fucking cool as shit. So
yeah, man. And like we said before, there's the deployed, and then there's the people that haven't deployed. Anybody that's been deployed knows that there's some level of PTSD that comes along inevitably with that. You can't get deployed as a human being. It's not normal for a human to do
yeah,
that.
very
That's
difficult.
a good
So anybody who's done it, props to you.
Reach
You got
out
my
to somebody.
handshake,
Yeah,
and that's why we all have the automatic conversations in these at the bars with these old timers or the young timers, any veteran across the planet, even if you're from a different damn country. If you're a veteran, veterans know veterans, man.
sure. You're not alone. You're not alone. So if you need anything, you can reach out to at or to you can email us at battlebuddies.com or battlebuddiespod at gmail.com.
You'll get there.
Yeah, words, but we're all over the internet. We'll link up Clayton's stuff if you ever need someone to reach out about your experience and just like talk or whatever. We're here
For
for
sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Clayton, we have a tradition here when we sign out, we say bonsai. So if you want to join us, thank you for listening, listeners. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all of you, and we will see you next time.
Bonsai.
Banzai.